Hello, and here we go. Back again, Crofts Cards and Collectibles. Today we're going to be running through how I juggle card grading companies. Lots of pros and cons, definitely more questions than answers. But we'll have a look at a few cards I've currently got that are graded. You can see them in front of you there. And also a few cards that I'm going to get graded in the near future. And kind of the logic I go through to which card grading company I would send them to, because I just don't send them to one. Send them to a few different ones. They have some different specialties. They have different grading scales. They have different values when they come back. PSA 10s versus SGC 10s, they're all different. So Australian companies as well we're going to include in this as much as we can. There's only a couple of them. So we'll do our best to cover the main companies, which is the American PSA, BGS, SGC, and CGC. But we're also going to try and sneaky two Australian companies in there where we can, TCG and CGA. I'll put all the logos up there on the screen so you can see what they kind of look like. I'm going to be using this section here on the screen to be putting lots of data up. So keep your eye on them if you love your stats, but that's pretty well all this is going to be, is a bunch of stats and questions and hopefully some answers. Hopefully maybe I'll even find some answers to questions I have had for a while and just can't quite figure it out. So I'll run through, I'll put up on the screen there. We'll start with PSA, typical costs of getting a card graded at PSA, the major company, $42.25 per card. About a 19-week turnaround on that. They are all over the shop. You send something to them. Apparently that 19-week period doesn't even start until they register it in their system, so it can actually sit in their warehouse for 1, 2, 3 months if they so choose. So a very time-consuming one then. PSA basically the most expensive, the most time-consuming, and I'm going to basically rant about all sorts of issues I've had. BGS currently just been bought out by PSA, so that sounds all a little bit shonky. Get on all the other YouTube news card channels and they've been talking about that for the last few months. Typically BGS is $27.10 per card. This is obviously taking into consideration exchange rates, etc., postage and all of those sorts of things are factored into these costs. $27.10 per card with them. They're about a 9-week turnaround. They can fluctuate a bit. That's obviously better than a 19-week turnaround. SGC has also been bought out by PSA about 12, 18 months ago, which is again doubling down on the shonkiness of it all. They've always been regarded as more of a vintage grader. They're $22.65 per card, about a 3 to a 4 week turnaround, much more appealing time frame, obviously. But the problem with those three companies is they're all owned by collectors. One company owning three major players in the card grading industry is a little concerning. Therefore, the only major player in the American market is CGC, typically known for grading Pokemon cards, like the typical gamer type cards, the cartoony type stuff. That's what they're kind of cut their teeth on. They're best at that, but they are starting to branch out into the sports card market now, mainly because this monopoly that PSA is running, so they're trying to stick their toe in that and see how they go. So I'm actually reasonably keen to get some stuff graded with them. I never have, but I'm pretty keen because their card price per card is $21.15 and they have about an 8-week plus very vague number turnaround. I even had to go as far as Googling a bit of that. On their website it says 4 weeks and then you kind of look a bit further and it says 8 weeks and then you Google it and it says you could be up around the PSA time frames as well. So I'm going to have to give them a crack because I'm trying to stay away from the PSA monopoly as much as I can. And it's not a bad cost, like it's the lowest cost of those 4 grading companies. So keen to give that a go. There are a couple of other smaller ones. Tag is starting to build a bit of a reputation, $30 per card if you grade 10 at a time. There's a 6-week turnaround there, which isn't too bad. AGS, which is a bot grading company. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe PSA owns that one as well, or Collectors owns that one as well. They're $22.65 per card, 4-week turnaround on that. And then there's an English company, Ace, which are pretty well Pokemon gurus, but they will grade everything. They're $24 per card, 12-week turnaround, but I don't believe they're doing anything internationally yet. So that's apparently to come. So anyway, a couple of Australian companies is TCG, which I recently sent some cards off to. They gave me a 10% discount on my first order, making it around the $14 mark. Depending on how many cards you get graded with them, they do bulk submissions for 10 cards, 25 cards. I'll put all the details up there for you to peruse through. About an 8-week turnaround on their cards. Nice little card holder. I've bought a couple of their cards. I don't have any with me, I'd show you, but they're pretty sturdy. They're pretty professional looking. I quite like them. CGA, Card Grading Australia, is a company I have used before. I should put some of their cards. I'll do a review of them at some stage anyway, because I quite like them as well. They're at around the $15 mark per card, a 6-week turnaround. I spoke to the grader at that company, and he's a really nice guy, really helpful. Basically understands the card market very well after being in it for a couple of decades, and understands that their market is grading Australian cards. So they've got a little Australian logo on their banner. You'll see that on the screen there. It's very professional. He's a very good grader. You can pretty well predict what he's going to grade. He's a little bit on the harsh side, but we always say that. And yeah, I would highly recommend CGA. I'm going to use them specifically for some vintage cards I've got, which I'll do a video on that at some stage. Some Don Bradman stuff, some Farlap card I have. I'm going to use him specifically for that. Maybe some Matilda's cards as well. Maybe some Aussie Rules cards as well. I like it because it's got an Australian logo, Australian name in it. But as far as grading Pokemon and American stuff with them, it doesn't really work. So, but we'll try and include the Aussie companies as much as we can today, even though it's going to be dominated by American companies. So we're going to review some of the cards. These are obviously cards that have previously been graded. Whether I've bought them graded or I've got them graded, I'll walk my way through that. We'll look at the pros and cons of all the companies and the different prices and all of that as we go through. So let's kick it off with our first card, which we're going to start with this Michael Jordan one right here in the middle. Sorry to put a little sticky there so they didn't slide over. So this is a 1992 Hoops Michael Jordan Dream Team card. Not an overly expensive Jordan card as far as Jordan cards go. I got it graded as a BGS 9.5. I was trying to boycott PSA here not long ago. Still kind of am. So I sent some stuff off to BGS. Was quite happy with their system. Found their system quite predictable. I was able to predict a lot of the grades. They did quite well. One of my bugbears with PSA is I've got no ability to predict what they're going to grade at all. You can have something that you think's a pristine 10, absolutely flawless, and it'll come back a 6. So yeah, I like to have my companies a little bit more predictable. So BGS has been, now they're owned by PSA, who knows what'll happen to them. You can see there they put the subgrades at the top. Subgrades basically meaning centering, edges, corners, and surface. So you'll see when I get to some of my raw cards, like this Pikachu one, I have a little dabble at the back there as to centering, cornering, edging, surfacing, etc., and try and predict what I'm actually going to get. So this card here, I'll put all the statistics up. I'll keep this card over to the side. A PSA 10, which, I have to talk about that. BGS 9.5 is actually their gem mint, so that is their version of a 10. They do a 10, they call it a pristine 10, but then they run 9.5s, 9s, 8.5s. They do the 0.5 thing, which is great, but they do start I keep saying it's a 10. It's confusing. I don't necessarily love the 9.5 actually being the equivalent to a PSA 10, but I do like the fact that BGS runs a 10 as a pristine 10, and then they do a black label 10 as well. And the black label stuff, maybe if there's some cards that have had black labels, it's extremely hard to get, but there are rich people out there that collect just them, and they can sell for a bomb. So if you're chasing black labels, BGS can be the reason why it's kind of still up and about. So anyway, a PSA 10 on that one is $173.90 was its last sale. 9, they dropped down to $35.50. So if you jump over to a BGS 9.5, so we say that's the equivalent to a PSA 10, so you think it should be about a $170 card. No, it turns into a $67.50 card, which is this one right here. I have this one on eBay presently. There is a link in my bio. You can get to my eBay store. I'm not going to be selling it for $60, $67.50. I will want more than that, or I will just happily keep it. A 9, though, this would drop to a $20 card. That's quite concerning, the drop-off. If this was SGC, so you can see this card here, it's in a black, I think they call it the tuxedo holder. If this card was that, a 10, it would be a $104.5 card, and as an SGC 9.5, it would drop to about a $58 card. If it was CGC, a 10 would get you $85.50, and a 9 would get you approximately $22.20. So I'll pop all that up on the screen there. You can kind of look at those numbers and go, what the hell, that's just all over the place. Big difference between 10s and 9s in prices, so you really do need to make sure you check your cards out thoroughly to ensure you're going to get the best bang for your buck there, because if you ran through those prices, if we sent this to CGC on their $21 card grading cost, I think it was $21, yes it was, we would have lost money, because obviously I pulled this out of a pack a couple of years ago, so I do have money in it. I wouldn't know how to calculate that, but if I got this graded with CGC and it only got a 9, then I am going to be losing money. So you really need to make sure you're getting 10s. So CGA, I found one of these sold with Card Grading Australia. It was a CGA 9 back in 2024, and it sold for $50. So I'll put all that up. So you really need to make sure to get maximum bang for buck. Obviously, PSA is going to provide the most amount of value and profitability to a card, but a lot of people on YouTube and out there are cracking cards out and running experiments to see who grades more consistently, etc., etc. And most of them do kind of come to the decision that PSA is very much pot luck. So if I thought I could get a 10 with this with PSA, I would send it to them. But you got to sign up as a member, and it's kind of fraught with all sorts of hazards. So I am trying to, my attempt of this little video today is to try and avoid PSA and hopefully convince myself that that's what I need to do. What you convince yourself of is purely up to you. Obviously, this is my video. I'm not trying to be biased or unbiased. I'll just be what I am. So, looking at another card, another BGS 9.5. Again, a fairly common card. I do remember pulling this when I was a teenager back in the 90s. So this one's a 1991 upper deck. BGS 9.5, your subgrades there. Centering let it down a little bit, only got a 9. Nice card though. I've had a few of them. Usually, I think the last couple of times I've had this card, I think I had a couple of PSA 10s of it, and it sold for about $150 back in those days. These days a PSA 10 is a $218.30 card. A 9 is a $35.60 card. A BGS 9.5, this one here, would score you about $96. Again, I'm not that pumped about that price, so I would happily hang on to that instead of take that. I'll wait till the market goes up a bit. If you got a pristine BGS 10, that last sold for $1,281. So if you get these in a 10, you are going to get yourself some better money. I did buy my daughter-in-law a rookie card, or rookie of the year card, sorry, of Caitlin Clark as a 10. It's the first BGS 10 I've ever actually owned. And then it was a present, so I never really owned it. So it's kind of cool to get the 10s in the BGS. Hope maybe that's something PSA actually changes for the better, gets rid of the 9.5 and goes with a 10. We'll see, time will tell. SGC 10 would get you a little bit more money at $118.50, and 9.5 would get you $103, so there's not a very big drop off there. So that's not too bad. CGC, terrible on this. They are only just starting to get into the sports market, but at CGC 10, it only gets you $62. The Australian companies, CGA has sold one back in 2024 as a 9 for $76.30, and TGC actually even has one of these, and they typically only do Pokemon, but they're trying to branch out into everything as well. They've had one sale as a TGC 9 in 2025, and it sold for a whopping $29.70. So there you go. Couple of fairly stock standard, what they call junk wax cards from the early 90s. You can still buy boxes of these if you wanted to try and pull them yourself. Same with this one. You can buy this box actually pretty cheap, because this gold edge around this card is notoriously hard these days to get it without chips and dings and all sorts of damage to it, because you imagine these cards have been banging around in a box for over 30 years. They're going to have a little bit of damage if they're not pristinely kept. So this is a 1990 Skybox. I bought this card 12 months ago, 18 months ago for $150, which I kind of just predicted based on trying to pull a few of these, and have pulled them. They're not impossible to pull, but they've always had damage. And I thought there's not going to be any new ones of these graded 10s. So this has to be reasonably old, an old grade, or graded a long time ago, because it's obviously a 10 and the edges of it are very, very good. PSA 10, get this, $777 this sold for yesterday. Not this one. This is an SGC 10, but a PSA 10 yesterday sold for $777. This one is actually for sale on eBay at the moment and has bids at $305 with still about 4 days to go. So I'm hoping this maybe rattles up closer to the $500 mark. BGS, if this was a 9.5, would sell for $273. So there's a big drop off there. Really not worth much at all as 9s, so I'll focus on the 10s, but I will put all the stats up on the screen for you. An SGC 10, the last sale was yesterday again at $362.60. I'm all over this card at the moment, obviously, because I've got it for sale. So yeah, I'm kind of hoping to break that 362 bracket on this one and get it into the 4s or maybe even the 500s. CGC 10 is down around $230. There's been a CGA 9 and a TCG 9, and they're hovering around the $40, $50 mark there. So that's why you don't grade these sorts of cards with the Australian companies. And old mate at CGA did tell me that exact same scenario. So they're well aware of that. But a really good card, that one. Only happy to sell it at crazy good money, because it is hard to get, and I'm not going to pay $700 for a sports card. All right, let's look at the Rodman, one of my favourite NBA players, Dennis the Worm. This is his rookie card, 1988 Fleer, a pretty iconic set. 9's a pretty good grade. We look at that as a PSA 9. It's going to get you about $148, so not worth a great deal, Rodman. As a 10, it gets you up over the $2,000 mark. So if we could get that as a 10, $2,808. If it dropped down to an 8, though, it'd be a $60 card. So probably still worth grading. I've got a couple more of them that are much sketchier than this one. This was the best one I had, so I sent it off. BGS 9.5 would get you $830. A 9 would get you about $90. And SGC, which obviously this is, a 10 would get you about $1,500, a 9.5 would get you $590, and this one here is worth about $110 or maybe fractionally more. I've got it for sale at the moment. I'm not actually 100% sure what I'm willing to take for it. I do like it. I'm probably unlikely to ever get a 10, so happy to kind of keep it. As long as I get good money, I will sell it. CGC has sold a 9 for $140, but that was back in 2024. So again, CGC not doing a lot in the sports card market. All right. Horace Grant, one of my faves again. I tend to only buy what I like. I'm going to prove that point wrong in a moment when I look at a LeBron card, but there's a reason I brought that. Here we go, PSA banner. I think it's the most boringest batshit banner you will ever see. There you go, the BBB. That's atrocious. That looks like a primary school kid designed that on day one learning how to use a computer. If I bag out BGS a little bit, I've got to have crazy good eyesight to read that. The font's so small. Mind you could fight a war with this case. This case is solid as hell. You could actually do some damage to someone with that. So I do prefer the BGS case. This one feels flimsy. I don't know what they're doing. They're the most expensive. It's like, that's just plain white paper, no gloss, nothing, no shimmer. They highlight their logo with a nice little bit of shimmer on the logo, but like it's just poor. Okay, yes, I can scan the card, blah, blah, blah. That's what the back of this card looks like. But yeah, I think, you tell me, I think that's disgusting. Like, put some effort in. Whereas if you go Ace, you check out Ace Grading, the English company, they do actually a match. So they would actually try and match this logo, and they go to a fair bit of effort, those guys. They do a good job. All right, but this is Horace Grant, one of the Chicago Bulls. I think he's a 4-time NBA champion, so he's one of my favourites, but I will sell it at the right money. This is a PSA 10. He's actually an $800 card, but at a 9, which this is, it's only a $77 card. So you do get a fair drop in your value from a 9 to a 10. If this was a BGS 9.5, it's a $100 card. Weirdly enough, the 9 is actually higher at the moment on $111. Sometimes you can get some weird stats. Depends when they were sold. I think both those values that I just mentioned were 2024 grades, which is a bit odd. SGC, no 10s have been sold. 9.5's a $40 card, 9's a $22 card. So you're going to get a lot more stats on PSA cards than anything else. There are some cards that you would call a liquid card, like basically those Michael Jordans. They would sell very, very regularly for very consistent amounts. This one might be up and down a little bit because it's a Horace Grant, not something that everyone wants to collect. So we're going to move on to a modern card now. This one's been a strange little adventure the last couple of years for a guy called Victor Wembanyama, a Frenchman, and basically an alien. His first year rookie stat highlights reel was just ridiculous. His stats were equally ridiculous. These cards all went through the roof during his rookie year, and they've all decreased massively. So this card here, PSA 10, it's a base card, but it's what they call an insert card. Not hard to get. I got it as a 9.5. I think from memory I pulled it out of a pack. And subgrades on it. Centering's the only thing really that's out a little bit. And yeah, it's now these days, as a PSA 10, a $93 card. No BGS 9.5, has sold recently for $30. An SGC 10 sold for $167. CGC 10 of $44. So it's really down. Like, this card was probably up around the $200 to $400 mark back in his rookie year. Everyone was going Wemby mad. I've got a lot more Wemby cards to get graded, but I'm going to wait till his value goes back up a bit again. It's going to, as long as he stays healthy. So that's kind of how the market works a little bit. If the player's playing well, if they're in finals or just won a championship or done something spectacular, their prices will go up. You don't want to be buying players that kind of go up and down in value all over the place. But the long look at a Wemby card is reasonably risk-free, I would think. It's just injury really is the biggest issue. So yeah, so we're going to hang on to that one for a while. I do have it for sale at the moment, but I'm not going to give it away. We'll wait for maybe the value to go up a little bit more. Now, me not being a massive LeBron fan, but I will collect cards, so I'll happily take a LeBron card. I do think this one, I bought it mainly for two reasons. It's a nice looking card. Like, that's a pretty epic action shot. Tell me I'm wrong. But the other reason I bought it was it's got this damage. So it's not actually, it's still watertight, but it's got a crack. And they were very good, the lister who sold this. They actually notified and even checked on email. When I purchased it, they said, "Oh, you make sure you have seen the pictures." And I said, "Yeah, I understand it's damaged." So I got this for $10. It's a 9.5, $10. Would have cost the person whatever that was, $25 or $30 to get graded. I don't think you can go wrong because they've graded a 9.5, so it should grade a 9.5 somewhere else. I'm going to crack this one out of this case at some point and send it to somewhere appropriate at some stage. I don't really know where, but this one is a bit of an adventure to say where to send it. So let's whack the stats up here and try and make a decision on where I should send this if we think it's probably anywhere between it could get anything between a 10 and a 9. So as a PSA 10, it's a $190 card at the moment. A 9 would get you $40. So if you think it's only going to get a 9 at PSA, you can't send it there because you're going to lose money. BGS 9.5 is an $80 card, but a 9 is a $19.25 card, so we're taking some risks there again. CGC as a 10 would only be a $50 card, and a 9.5 would be a $32 card. So it's starting to sound like my $10 purchase was okay, but that damage definitely means I'm not going to get my $32 back. CGC, $28.12. So we're probably going to need this card to go up in value a little bit. Maybe BGS is worthwhile if I think it could, if I cracked it out and saw if I thought it could had a very good chance at a 9.5. But it's a nice card. It's from 2006, so it's not like it's a young card. It's 20 years old, that card. It's been protected, which is great, so we'll probably run the experiment either with BGS. Maybe if CGC over the next 6 or 12 months can get themselves going in the sports market, I'll send it to them. We'll see. All right, so I think that's a pretty good look at all this previous stuff I've had graded. What we're going to do now is try and make some decisions on where these cards should go. So I've got some Pokemon there. We're going to work our way through a couple of Superman cards, 1990 Superman cards. A few soccer autographs. We've got some Caitlin Clark rookie cards. We've got a Yamal rookie, a Shaq rookie. Oh, I'm dropping them. And then we're going to finish with some Jordan and some bigger stuff. We've got a surprise on the last one. So here we go. The first one you saw there was a Pikachu. So we've got a Pikachu EX. Not massively knowledgeable about my Pokemon stuff, but I do know value. And I do have, getting all these statistics off a website, a database called Card Ladder. There's a few different ones out there. Card Ladder is the one I use. They just basically have a database of all the recent sales from all the different auction houses. So raw, this card costs about $27. From memory, me and Arlo pulled this out of a pack. PSA 10 is a $96 card. Again, I'll put all these stats up on the side here. 9 is a $26.60 card. CGC 10, if it was a pristine 10, is a $44 card, which is weird because then a normal 10 is a $71 card. 9.5 would be a $32 card. BGS is not even worth considering, and CGC is fairly low in value as well there. So it's looking like potentially CGC, given I'm refusing to send anything to PSA, which you start to think he sounds like he's throwing money down the gurgler, because if he sends all this stuff to PSA, he's going to make a fortune. I can't guarantee what grades I'm going to get. So, sorry, tell you on the back what I thought there. So I got centering 10, corners 10, edge 10, and surface 10. My previous, whenever I did this little analysis, it looked like it was a $60 card, which potentially it's a $70 card, but I do think it's going to get a 10. So we'll pop that there. This we pulled the other day. This was on one of my other videos, I think my second video ever. The Dawn Full Art, they call it. PSA 10 of this is a $166 card. You can buy it for about 16 bucks raw though. A 9 would be $36. A CGC pristine 10 would be $74, and a normal 10 would be $42. These Pokemon cards I'm probably sending to CGC. We've got a centering issue potentially. Sometimes it's hard to tell centering, or not with Pokemon cards because they've got a nice little border around them. So yeah, when I did this value on it, it was more like a $200 card. So maybe there's been some sales a bit lower recently. That can all jump around all over the place. So we've got this Namel, which if you want to review a little bit about the Namel, it's actually a peel sticker. You peel it off and there's a different Pokemon card underneath called a Ditto. This card has dropped a little bit of value since I did that PSA 10 value of $600. I do think it's going to get a 10 though. They're notoriously apparently hard to grade because this is actually a sticker. You probably won't be able to zoom in on that, but you can actually tell there's something actually stuck over the top of that. Anyway, it's not worth much as a Ditto, like about 150 bucks, so I'd much rather have a crack at getting it graded as a Ditto. This is actually one of Arlo's, I think, so I don't get to keep the value on this one. But raw, you can buy them for about 15 bucks. Pokemon has good upside to value. You're looking at $520, $530. A 9, it only gets you about $60, but still worth grading at that point. CGC 10 sold for $42, but a 9.5 and 9.5 sold for $15.50. So the fact that I'm even considering sending these to CGC is risky. I'm going to start to hopefully work on the fact that PSA has done themselves a disservice creating a monopoly, and a lot more people start to respect CGC a bit more. But I haven't sent them yet. We'll make better, more educated decisions as we get closer, because nothing's guaranteed at this point. Okay, we've got into the Charizards. We've got a Radiant Charizard, again, one of young Arlo's cards here. Thinking 9.5-ish type scenario. Again, forget these numbers. Worry about these numbers off to the left. We are talking Radiant Charizard PSA 10, a $230 card. Now, what did I have? 180. So it's going up in value. 9 only gets you 40 bucks. BGS pristine, $277. There you go. 9.5 gets you nearly $100. SGC only gets you about $70. 9.5 gets you 40. So another problem with this scenario is if you hedge your bets between 10s and 9s, at least all the other grading companies except PSA have a 9.5. So you can actually get something in between, so you don't get that massive drop-off between what is their $230 10, PSA 10, versus a $40 PSA 9. If there was a 9.5 in between, there would hopefully be a value in between, so you don't get that massive drop-off. So again, the PSA thing is just risky. Trying to minimize your risk to make some money here to keep your hobby going. So this Charizard here, again, my apologies for not knowing all the Charizards and what sets they come out of and everything like that. You can buy this card for about $6 raw. PSA 150 bucks. PSA 10 150 bucks. PSA 9 only 40 bucks. BGS drops in value massively. CGC is getting up there a little bit better, but again, the dollar amounts are going to revolve around PSA. The risk goes up massively with PSA. Trying to, I guess, convince myself to not dip my toe back into that water. I have graded a lot of stuff with PSA before. I've done okay, but it's just all over the shop. It's just very hard to predict. Stats came out recently about how much time they spend grading a card. It's like 30 seconds, but I don't know if any of the other companies are much better than that, to be honest. But yeah, it's challenging. All right, the Mega Charizard that I pulled the other day, actually on this channel, there you go. I believe this is going to get a 10, maybe under. 9.5. Again, it'll probably go to CGC. CGC on this card is actually a $150 card if it got a pristine. It's about a $90 card if it just got a Gem Mint 10. And a PSA 10 would get you 250 or 244, and a 9 would get you 43. So at least with, well, I guess there is still a big drop-off between a Gem Mint 10 and a 9.5. You're talking $90 versus less than 20. So you got to be pretty good with looking at your cards properly, which will probably be another video I do, show you how I try and do that, at least somewhat, without destroying all my free time. Okay, here's Arlo. This is actually more of Arlo's cards. This was I think a birthday present that I got wrong. He wanted a Marvel set of cards, and I managed to buy a DC box. But these are from 1992, I believe. Yeah, 1992 DC. I've got a few of them. There are actually a few cards, especially Superman cards, some Flash cards, Wonder Woman cards, etc. in this that I'll gradually get graded, but these are a couple of the better ones. So this is 1992, over a 30-year card. It's PSA 10. It's worth more than that 150 now. So this one, the corners and the centering, maybe some fractional issues. Maybe it doesn't get a 10. You have to look at that there and go, gee, that looks like that has whole shifted that way a bit. Again, CGC might be more kind to us. Maybe I only send this to one of the Australian mobs, particularly TCG might be a good one for this one. They've got a 60-40 ratio of how your card can be out, whereas PSA is a little bit stricter on that. PSA 10, though, is a $178 card. You can actually buy this card raw for $2. Like, it's not a hard card to buy. They would have printed the living suitcase out of it. So you can buy it, but the problem is it's a 30-odd-year-old card. It's going to be pretty dinged up by the time you get it. Anyway, a 9 is only a $37 card. There's no real kind of other companies that have sold that one. Another Superman card, an iconic. I think this was the cover of the first Superman comic. So this one is a PSA 10, gets $185. Again, you can buy it for a couple of bucks, mainly because they're all pretty junk. I think this one's got a chance at a 10, maybe more of a 9, 9.5. So I don't think we'll invest heavily in getting that one graded, therefore sending it to PSA. All right, here's one for the personal collection. Having said that, I always say that about a lot of the Aussie athletes. They're just for the personal collection. I sold this card last week for $250, graded as a BGS 9 with an autograph grade of 10. Now you're thinking, how does an autograph not get a 10? That's basically as a sticker. And if the signer managed to get some of their signature off the edge of it, or they smudge it, or it's a bit messy compared to what they would normally do, then it won't get a 10. This got an auto 10, but the card was graded a 9 BGS, and I sold it for $250. It's kind of the only one that's been graded, or sold at least graded. You can buy this card raw for about $100. It does bump around a bit depending on if she has called any English policeman white and stupid. I would have to think the value would go up from saying that, wouldn't you? Particularly in this country. Maybe the Poms get a bit offended about it. But anyway, well done, Sam. Stick it to them. Don't take shit. So that one I'm going to send off for grading. Like I said, I did this pretty well exact same card, number to 75, auto. It's a nice looking card. I think this one's going to get a 9, so it's not going to be, well, it's probably going to be about the same as the last one, so, but we'll see. I probably won't sell that one. All right. Mary Fowler World Cup card from, I think that was 2023. Was a very hard card to get for a long time. You can actually, a few more of them come on the market lately. This one's to 99 autographed. It's a nice autograph, nice and clear. So we'll definitely get a 10 on the auto. And I think it's going to get a 9. It's a 500 plus card. Her stuff sells for crazy amounts. So a CGC 10-10. I'll put the picture up of the actual card that's sold for 10-10, sold for $1,000. Now, she's a great player, but she's still super young. She hasn't done anything crazy yet, like a Sam Kerr. But you compare a Sam Kerr who's done everything as a women's soccer player versus Mary will obviously have a big upside that she'll probably do a fair bit more. But her card sales are better than Sam's. Having said that, she's out with a knee reconstruction at the moment, hopefully back in the next couple of months. So maybe her card values will go up even further then. You can buy this card for about $170. It wasn't long ago, 12 months, you couldn't buy this card under $500. There is a PSA that sold graded 9 but a 10 auto, and it sold for $423. Lots of stuff on the internet, people trying to sell this card for crazy money. There is a 1010, that SGC 1010 that sold for $1,006 6 months before that sold for $600. Now the person who owns it wants $2,000, and it's been on the market for a while. No one's willing to pony up $2,000 for it. So it's a reasonably popular card, but people are after kind of stupid money for it at the moment. All right. We're into the Caitlin Clark rookie cards. These are all from my daughter-in-law, Kel, Arlo's mother. Loves Caitlin Clark. So we keep buying these. We keep trying to get them graded, and we want some good grades. So I'll probably end up sending these off to CGC because they're cheaper and are more likely, I believe, from what I saw recently on some grading reviews of CGC, they're a little bit easier to get a 10. And they're a little bit easier to predict. So this one here, the 2024 Instant Caitlin Clark rookie card, quite an iconic card. Raw, it's about $66. A PSA 10 will bring you $305. A BGS 10 Pristine will bring you about $300. A Gem Mint 9.5 will bring you $117. And a SGC about $130. So what do I think it's going to get? I think it's going to get a 9. All those numbers are up there as to what I think it'll get. No CGC sales, but that's probably where it's going. So it'll be interesting to see. Another Caitlin Clark, the Prism rookie card this time. About a $28, $30 purchase raw. PSA 10, $400, so lots of upside on this one. I've got a BL, means I think it's a black label, because when I would have thought I'll send this to BGS. Then they got bought out by PSA, and I thought, screw that. BGS, no black labels of this card have been sold. Best sell is a 9.5 Gem Mint for $133. SGC 193 for a 10 and CGC 65 for a 10. So maybe that one goes to BGS and I look to try and get that black label. If their Gem Mint 9.5 is 133, then I'd probably 10x it if it got a black label and say it's about a $1,300 card. So we can only hope. Kel would stab me if I sold it. So I'll never get to profit from that one. Here's one of young Arlo's. We're trying to get him. I think we've got them all now. We'll have to do an Arlo collection video. We've got him every Cristiano Ronaldo World Cup card. So this is one that's got to go off for grading. I think he's got all the others graded. I don't think there's any left. So he's got them all, even the original. Was that 2006, I think, was his first one. He's got that one in a BGS 8. Young Arlo gets dirty on 8s. He only wants to see 10s. So as much as it's probably about a $500, $600, maybe even $700 card, I'm not sure. As an 8, he just wants 10s. I think if it's a 10, it's about a $5,000 or a $6,000 card. Not this one. This one here is a 2010 World Cup card. And raw, it's about a $90 card. And a PSA 10 is a $577 card. BGS 9.5, which is probably where this one will go because all of his other cards are BGS, is a $645 card, and an SGC is a $234. I think it's getting a 10. I've got a question mark on centering. Sometimes I look at these and I go, what the hell? How in the hell am I supposed to tell how that's centered? Anyway, that's their job, not mine. All right. The new breed coming through is Laminha Mole. So this is one of his base rookie cards, not an overly expensive card, $12 raw, PSA 10, $130. I imagine we're looking at it because I think it's a 10. That is correct. BGS 9.5 is a $15 card. That's crazy. SGC 10 is an $85 card. That one will probably go to CGC. I don't know. This is the problem. You just don't know. You just don't know. You got to make smart decisions at the time, and then do a lot of crossing your fingers. Okay, we've got a Shaq rookie card here. One of my favourite cards, one of my favourite players. MJ, obviously my favourite, but Shaq is way up there. I'll have to do a video on my Guernseys as well. I've got a lot of signed Guernseys. Shaq, I've got a couple. He signs a lot of stuff, so his signature doesn't mean it's worth crazy amounts, even though it should. The Shaq rookie card is a 1992 Topps raw. This is only about a $6 card. It's hard to get to buy it raw good. I pulled this out of a box. I got about 3 or 4 of them, I think, out of a box. There is a gold label of this one, which is worth a hell of a lot more than this one. But I just want a 10 Shaq rookie card. So if this gets a 10, I'm keeping it. For PSA 10, it'd be a $200 card. BGS 9.5 is a $45 card. It's crazy. It's criminal that this man's cards would be worth so little. So see how that one goes. I do think it's getting a 10. Yes, it's got a chance of less, but I think a 10. All right, now we're into the big dogs. Jordan, 89 sticker. Terribly hard to get a good grade. They were horrible with centering on this card. You can see this one is shifted to the left. I imagine I've given it a 9 and possibly lower. Rest of it's kind of 9s, possibly lower. It looks like it's probably going to be an 8 or a 9. This particular card here, raw, is about a $10 to $20 card, so it's not crazy hard to get, but they're usually pretty bashed up. PSA 10 is $11,000 because they are typically so badly conditioned. $11,000. A 9 is a $325 card with PSA. An 8 is an $80 card. What did I think? I think 8 or 9. So I'm thinking $80 to $325. That's a big differential. BGS 9.5, Gem Mint, $2.7 thousand. BGS, in my experience, grades consistently, but they are harsh. They are hard to get good grades. Basically, I think I predicted I had to knock everything down 0.5 on what I thought. So if I'm thinking 9, I'd say with them it's probably an 8 or an 8.5, which an 8 is a $75 card and a 9 would be $220. There was obviously no 8.5 sales, or I would have had that stat for you. There you go. Do like that card. I have had it before. I think I had it as a 9 and I sold it, made some money. Probably the most iconic, or one of, it's not the most iconic Jordan card, but iconic pictures of Michael Jordan being in the 1988 dunk competition. Oh, geez, don't quote me on that. 98, I guess it's 88 because this is an 88 card. This is an 88 All-Star Fleer card. Getting into the harder cards to get, this card's more like a $70 to $125 card raw. Again, really hard to get good condition. Looking at this one, the centering's not horrendous, but I've got there as 8s, 9 for surface. So we're looking at an 8. PSA 10, $13,000 card. A PSA 9 is still a $1,000 card, and an 8 is anything from $250 to $360, which is probably where we're sitting. 9.5 BGS would be a $4,000 card. All those stats are up there. It's fairly complicated on this one. I'm not going to send anything to SGC ever again, which I haven't mentioned yet, and I knew I would eventually mention it because I'd remember. Got a heap of stuff graded with SGC. I can predict their grades reasonably well. But the last lot I got graded with them, they damaged a card. They weren't great to deal with, even though they fully admitted it was their fault. They gave me a little bit of store credit that I actually never used because it wasn't much. And despite the fact it was a messy base card that should have been about a $100 card, they gave me a $50 credit. So it's pretty annoying. So I'm PO'd with them. I won't be using them ever again. So SGG stats, if it was a 10, it would still be a $3.3 thousand card, but I'm not sending this to them. It'll probably go to BGS most likely, and we'll run the gauntlet on that being hopefully an 8.5 or an 8, and it being about $250 to maybe $370 worth of value there. We'll see. Good card though, like it. I've got one of these. I actually should tell a lie. My daughter has one of these as a BGS 8. This is the card that goes with this card. These are both out of the same set. There was also a sticker that I don't have. I did own one once and sold it. I sell too many things. I hardly keep anything. As you can tell, this is most of my collection. I've got some Matilda's cards and stuff, but I get rid of most things eventually if someone wants to pay me decent money. So this 1988 Fleer Raw is about $160. There was a sale the other day for $592. So they must have been very, very confident that it was going to get a 10, because that is the only reason you would pay that much for it. You would have to be guaranteed it was a 10, because a PSA 9 only gets you $560 back. So to buy it for $592, you got to be fishing for gold. Now, I didn't pay that much. I paid a couple of $100 for this card because of that. I think it's a chance of a 10. We've got 10, we've got corner 9, edge 10, surface 9. I obviously look at the upside. It's probably worst case scenario going to get a 9. So it's going to be a $500 card. At a $200 buy, it's still good, potential good profitability. If it gets an 8, I will get my money back. So I've got some wiggle room there at least not to lose money. The sales on this one are fairly consistent the whole way through, except your BGS 9.5, which is a gem mint, only gets you $2.6 thousand versus a 9 would get you $500. So you check these stats out here, it kind of bumps around a little bit, but I still think with this one, BGS is going to be fairly good. If I really wanted to stick my neck out, I could go SGC, but I don't want to grade with them. PSA is obviously the big dog value, but they're not going to give it a 10. I would guarantee you PSA is no chance of giving that a 10. BGS would be a tough grade too, so I reckon I might run the gauntlet and send that to CGC and see if they could get it a 10. There hasn't been a sale on that, so I'm willing to take the risk because I do like the card. I'd happily keep it. My daughter has one that's an 8, so she's got a $250 Michael Jordan card in her little collection. Her collection's pretty sparse. She has a Will Smith PSA 9, which is odd. I'll show you that at one point. Anyway, that's potentially a highly valuable card. Now we're into the last card. Check this bad boy out. This is a Lionel Messi 2006 World Cup rookie card. You can imagine it's not for me, it's for Arlo, and we're going to send that off for grading at some point. Yes, I am scared because this as a PSA 10 is a $7,600 card. As a 9, it is a $1,350 card. As an 8, it is a $930 card. A 7 still gets you $500. This one's crazy awesome. BGS 9.5 is a $3,000 card. A 9 would get you $1,500. The values in all the grades are good on this card. So this one, I reckon I'll go BGS. I reckon. But let's have a look at what we think. So I haven't even put what I think the grade is, so we can figure that out now. Centering I think is a 9.5, corners I think is a 7.5, edges are an 8, surface is a 10. typically grading companies will only go half a point grade higher than the minimum grade. So if this 7.5 comes to fruition, it'll only get an 8. But I've got arrows here to say the edge is potentially better than an 8 and the corners are potentially better than a 7.5. So worst case scenario, I think 8, which with BGS would make it a $250 to $450 card. I think from memory, I paid maybe $200 for it. It is a gift that just keeps not giving because it's been sitting in the 2 grade pile for a solid 6 months now. Arlo probably would like to get this one at some point. Best case scenario, say that gets bumped up to an 8.5, that gets an 8.5. Maybe it gets bumped up to an 8.5 and it's a $700 card. Maybe. Good card nonetheless, hard to get. People want top dollar. Last raw sale of this card was $600. People do not give this card away. So Messi's obviously all up and about at the moment. His stuff's going to keep going through the roof because he is the GOAT. But yeah, last raw sale of this card, $600. Therefore, it's actually even risky to grade the damn thing. Unless you think it's probably going to get a 7 or an 8. Like you probably need it to get an 8, really. We're a chance of an 8, so I think it's. I personally would get it graded just so it was in a holder. It's actually a pretty good quality card, so pretty happy with that. All right, one day I will get all these graded, and we'll be able to go back over this video and see how I went. So for now, thank you very much for signing in, and hope that was a little bit educational for you, and we'll try and do something like this again if it gets some reviews. See you later.